and his ankle and his turf toe. If he could stay away from that stuff, he could get you, 45 receptions and several hundred yards.
And as you said, originally, he was with Miami. He's got 43 games, 2 starts. He averages, when he does get the ball thrown his way, he averages 16 yards of reception throughout his career. So, he's got a little bit of go get him. Like you said, staying on the field, the problem. 43 games, only started twice. So we'll see. I mean, that's another veteran in there. And all of this kind of centers on Josh Gordon. I wanted to bring him up because I noticed this morning that word came out from Adam Schefter that Josh Gordon has hired Maurice Sue, who was the attorney who represented Richard Sherman when he appealed his suspension for the performance-enhancing drugs. Remember, he had the Adderall suspension. That he was suspended for 4 games. And so Gordon hired him, and Sherman won that appeal based on a technicality that had to do with, the lid wasn't on the cup right or something with the urine test. It was a real technicality. It was one of those ones that you watch Law and Order, and it's the lawyer that you go, ooh, that guy's a shark, man, and avoids all the evidence and gets the thing thrown out because they didn't sign the paper at the right place, But anyway, so maybe a sign of hope for Josh Gordon and the Browns as they head into Friday. And maybe, just maybe, he doesn't go down the whole season. I don't care about Johnny Cochran here. I don't mean to talk ill of the dead, but I don't care if you've got a super attorney here. I still don't see how this thing doesn't end up with with a full 16-game suspension.
It's very possible that Commissioner Goodell, takes pity on him and says, if you can show me that you've recovered substantially, I'll commute it in mid-season and let you come back for November and December. That would be a big thing. And that's what I think they're shooting for right now. At least that's what I've heard, that he only gets 8 games and not 16. That would be really, really merciful on the part of the league if he wasn't out the whole year.
I agree, and I think that would be very likely. Like, we wouldn't even be talking about this if he didn't get the leeway last year. I think that may be what hurts him. And then maybe, in your scenario, instead of 8, maybe 12 games. Maybe a chance to come back for the final 4 games of the season. But you may be right. I've heard a lot of people speculate that it may be 8 games. But, my thought is, for sure he would get it cut if he didn't already get it cut last year and they cut him some slack. Because now, just like, when any of us, you get in trouble once for something, it's like, all right, anybody can make a mistake. But when you go back in front of the judge or your parent or whatever for the same thing again, it's like, okay, you obviously didn't learn your lesson. That's what I fear prevents this from getting cut down.
Well, you're right, and it's possible that he does, that his suspension is indefinite. It's more than 16 games, too. We don't know. We
because
don't know what evidence.
DUI, too. Even
Even
if that's not part of the penalty, that still may be part of the thought process because there's still an unresolved issue of a DWI coming down the pike, too.
Exactly, and that's going to be difficult to adjudicate in this case.
So, but you know what? John McMullen, he speculated, or he didn't just speculate, he said that he doesn't believe that will be a part of it. And I've had people tell me that too, that will be a whole separate deal. So that could very well be too. And let me throw this at you, because I speculated this last week since the last time you and I talked, and I speculated that no matter what, that that he could have more to deal with after this. Even if it was, let's pretend they don't cut this down. Let's just pretend they don't cut this down and it's a 1-season suspension, that he still could face a 2 to 4 game suspension after this. It's almost like having consecutive sentences when you plead guilty to 2 different charges instead of doing it at the same time. Like, okay, I apply for reinstatement, whether it's after 8 games, 10 games, 12 games, 16 games, whatever. Okay, Josh Gordon's allowed back in the league. He's been reinstated for that. Now he has to serve a 2 to 4 game suspension for the DUI or whatever, because as we've seen, 2 games seems to be the going rate for either DUIs or beating your woman. So apparently that may be, still. Do you think he may still have a second suspension to deal with later?
Very possible. Very, very possible that, he gets a 20-game suspension, 16 this year and 4 next year.
That's what I thought.
would really throw a monkey wrench in the works in his case. He'd really have to get a hold of himself now and get himself straightened out. He'd have to go the Chris Carter route.
Well, you know what? He did. Now, he didn't do the full-blown, but he did 2 weeks in a rehab facility. Remember, we talked, I don't know if you and I talked, but it came out that right after the DWI, he got with the Browns, and he went out to California, and he did 2 weeks in a rehab facility there. So he did, it might have been late, but he did at least show a willingness to get some help, and so that could play into his favor, too.
Yeah, but you need a lot more than 2 weeks. Okay?
Oh yeah,
I know,
brother.
I know. Lawrence Taylor rehabbed himself by playing golf, supposedly one of those times.
Lawrence Taylor's been rehabbing for 15 years, brother. I don't know, man. I'm just saying, I don't know if he's clean now, but I know for a long time he wasn't, and he had went to many a rehab in between.
That's right. That's right.
You know what's funny?
He tells a good story. He tells a good story. He says, the person who was Lawrence Taylor, I did not like. He said, I did not like myself back then. He said, the guy who's Lawrence Taylor now is a much better person than the guy who was Lawrence Taylor 20 years ago. And that really speaks volumes when you're talking to somebody who's a recovering addict. That they could say, I look at myself from back then and I realize I don't like myself the way I do now. And I think that's what Josh Gordon has to do. He has to come to the realization that he doesn't like himself as an addict before he really gets the permanent help that he needs.
And that's true. And that's where a lot of them reach that point, exactly what you said, where you finally decide, okay, enough is enough. You brought up LT. I don't want to use the word funny, but it is funny to think about it that, we still, to this day, people will, because rightfully so, he changed the game from the linebacker position, truly, there's a great player, and then there's people that changed parts of the game by the way that they played it. He just happened to be in kind of the transition period where he opened up a whole new thing, but he was fueled on cocaine, man. To think about, without drug abuse, I'm curious. You could say good or bad, but what would Lawrence Taylor have been? Because that really set him loose. Not that there's any good benefits of it, but that put him over the top and turned him into that bunch of crazed dogs. You know what I mean? So, interesting to think though, how good and bad, how drugs.
But when you look at it, Jerry, there's three guys that changed the position in the modern era, that changed linebacking for what it is today. Obviously, the first one was Dick Butkus.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, well, I have to put four in there. There's Dick Butkus. There's Andre Tippett, who did a lot of great things, during his career. You have Lawrence Taylor, and then, of course, more recently, we have Ray Lewis.
Yep.
And all of them went through difficult times in their lives, in their periods, that they had adversity they had to overcome. The question is, whose was worse? Ray Lewis getting off a murder charge, or Lawrence Taylor getting away from drugs? And don't get me wrong, I've talked to Ray a bunch of times. I like Ray. I think what Ray did for the Ravens was a tremendous thing. But it doesn't take away the fact that he was present during a murder.
I agree. That's an argument that I'll make. We can go a whole nother direction with that one there. I'm with you. I'm not saying it's better, but at least what LT was doing was destroying himself and himself only. Now, Ray Lewis is a whole different argument. And, I know he's all Christian and religious now, but, guilty people do a lot of weird things in their life. Now, I'm not a Ray Lewis fan at all because of what we're talking about right here. It has nothing to do with the team that he plays for or whatever. But but you're right. Those are the guys that changed the linebacker game for sure, and Lawrence Taylor was definitely part of that evolution. Josh Gordon, end of the day, seriously, all BS aside, you just want to see him get things straightened out because from a selfish perspective, God, what a talent that is to have out there on the football field. But who cares about that, man? You just don't want to... I don't want, and I mean this, I don't care if he ever plays football again or not. 5 years from now, I don't want to hear like some sordid tale of how his life, not because of weed, not because of this, but because you leave and you lose the game, you lose the money, you lose your friends, your fake friends that are around you, you spiral into depression, then your life really takes a bad turn. We use these terms now to talk about failing a weed test as your life taking a bad turn, but his life could really take a bad turn once you lose everything you have. We see it happen to everyday people all the time. So, I mean, at the end of the day, just for that, I don't want 5 years from now to hear the story about, you know, Josh Gordon who did this, and this once he got kicked out of the NFL, you know? Just
yeah, I don't think nobody really does, Jerry. Nobody wants to hear bad stories like that.
Yeah, but it is what it is. Right now, he's got his appeal on Friday. I guess before that, we can't really talk about much more there. Right now, he's practicing with the Browns, and he's out there, and I do get a kick out of the PC answers. Everybody's like, well, is it weird having Josh out there knowing that he's not going to be with you in a couple of days? Oh, no, man. We love it. There's nothing wrong with having him out there. I mean, all of them, meanwhile, are like, well, you're kind of right because he's not going to be playing. But, you know, I mean, hey, it is what it is. But, you know, and that it's kind of sad for those of you that have been out there and seen camp because he still shines. And still, no matter how much we talk about the other receivers doing well, Josh Gordon's a head and shoulders above him, you know, and you can see it right now today in camp. You can see the difference between Josh Gordon and the other wide receivers. So it just really gives you that stark contrast of what you're going to be missing. But, hey, his own fault. Browns fans are the ones that suffer, but it's his own fault. And we'll have to see what the punishment is and then see how he fixes it.
Well, more importantly, Pettin thinks the team's off to a good start, and you know, I know, you know, from watching him his years as an assistant with the Jets, he is a no-nonsense guy, and he runs a good practice. So, you know, if he says things are going well, then we have to agree that things are going well until we see otherwise.
I agree, because I've seen it, but just as a joking question for you, have you ever heard a coach 5 days into camp tell you that things aren't going well?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Well, there
I
you
have.
Go.
Sure. You know.
Well, those are some honest ones then, because there's not many of them.
I've been present at many a Rex Ryan press conference and many a Tom Coughlin press conference where you would think they just lost the game 46-0. Okay, you know, Coughlin is, you know, he's a mercurial workaholic. He's a great guy to talk to. He's a very nice man. But when he doesn't get what he wants out of the players, you know, you can't go near him for a couple hours.
No, really I agree with you. And that's what we're talking about, losing and stuff. But I'm talking, I don't recall too many times that I've seen a coach a week into camp go, yeah, camp has sucked so far, man. These guys, they got to get their head out of their ass. They all say, yeah, things are going good, pretty much as we expected so far. Rex
Ryan will say that in not too many words, and he has no problem saying that to the New York media, Jerry. And, you know, I actually spoke to somebody this morning on Messenger who is out there at Forum Park, and he says it's BAU, business as usual here.
All right. Dr. Football, business as usual here. Always fun, man. A good circle around conversation here. Talking NFL every Tuesday on the Sports Fix. Bill Chick is Dr. Football with us, my man. Bill, have a good week. Week 2 of training. Hey, you know what? Got games. You got a game to watch this weekend. An actual football game that almost counts. And there'll be real players in it for a few minutes and everything, man.
That's right. There'll be a couple of minutes of real players in real uniforms, and we'll see what it looks like. And I'm excited to watch that game, get going with that. But later on this week, I'll be down in Phoenix, you know, for Cardinals. For a Cardinals dust up, we'll see what that new practice facility looks like.
For sure. For the first 7 minutes, you're going to get to see them trot out to midfield. They're going to call the coin toss. They're going to line up for a kickoff. Each team will run a couple of plays. So I'm guessing 6, 7, 7.5 minutes of real football coming your way this weekend.
Hey, that's better than 0 after 7
Damn
months.
right it is. You damn right it is. Dr. Football, my man, thank you so much for a great talk, and we will catch up on Tuesday.
All right, man. I'll talk to you next week. Have a good week and enjoy your weekend.
You too, my man. Dr. Football, the doctor's always in the house every Tuesday right here on the Sports Fix. Tweet with them at Ask Dr. Football. We're going to take a break. When we come back, final segment of the show. An interesting story here. I'll talk about it here, about the Redskins and their thoughts on RG3. Kind of similar to we talk about here. But anyways, we'll talk about that. Indians preview for the game tonight. We'll open up the phone lines one last time. 216-539-7535. 216